Hi, my name is Caitlin Turnbu, and I am the author of the fantasy series Superers, and I run this channel, Caitlin Turnbu. On this channel, I teach writers how to write, publish, and market their books the right way the first time. In this video, I'm specifically talking about how to write your first page. I've previously have a video on how to write your first chapter, which is going to correspond with this video, and I suggest watching it first. Your first page is important because it is what readers first read, and this will determine whether they're going to buy your book or not, both online and in bookstores, and so that's why your first page is important. Also, most publishers will just ask for the first page or maybe the first chapter, and they decide, both readers and publishers will decide whether they like your style, your tone of voice, and whether they really want to turn the page to buy it. I mean, they're going to possibly give you money for it, so they're not going to just spend it on some crap. And when you're looking through a book at a bookstore or at a library, you're not really wanting, at least me, I'm not really wanting to spend a lot of time on books that are a waste of time. So the sooner I can get them hooked into my book, the better. So that's why first line, first page, first chapter has a lot of pressure to be important, and is why, because of all the pressure, it's very easy to squander on them. You're going to want to set your style, your mood, and your tone here to decide, because that's how the readers and the publishers are going to decide whether or not it's a good fit for them. You're going to make this decision based off of your word choice and the attitude, and if your character should be introduced in your first chapter, your character's attitude. By the end of the first page, your reader should know what gender your character is, and the overall output, the attitude that the character has. Are they more of a negative person, or are they more optimistic? Are they more happier about things? Are they kind of grunty? Are they more of a follower? This is going to develop through the first chapter, but they should, like, the first step needs a part of the first page. Okay. Oh, and it's also your setting. Your reader should also know by the first page whether this takes place 300 years ago, today, or in the future. So now I'm going to aim for what not to do, and then I'm going to start going into details of what to do. And so basically, most of this is going to say avoid cliches. This includes try to steer away from dreams and flashbacks. Now, my second book in my series does start with a dream, but by the time people go to the second book in the series, they are hooked on because of the first one. My first book does not start with a dream. Do not try your best not to open up with a dream or a flashback. This is kind of cheating and is overused so much that they will put the book down. They're like, oh, it's another one of those. They don't want to read something they've already read. Please do not have the character pondering their life. Okay? If it's a romance book and they're at a wedding and they decide that, hey, I haven't gotten married yet, they should not be pondering about their life, how they're so sad they don't have another person with them. Okay, they should not just go on and on. That's boring and cliche, and no one cares. Also, do not infodump. Your reader doesn't care yet about information. They just want to know whether this is a good book or not. So you shouldn't be giving them any information except what's happening. So that does not mean any backstory. Do not live in the past in your first page, because they don't care about the past right now. They currently are looking at the present. And another thing you shouldn't do is completely narrating the whole thing. You need to put some sort of interaction with it, and that means like dialogue and narrating a mix. If you go straight narrating, that slows down the pace of your book, one, and it kind of shows that that is your style of writing, and there's going to be a lot of character moving, character interaction, talking. Your character doesn't talk a lot. And so you need to have that first page. You need to be able to hear the way your character talks and how it reacts to other characters. Try to put a couple dialogue stuff in there. At the same time, don't go all dialogue, because then they're not going to get your imagery style. They're not going to get the tone of voice exactly. And so you just need to find the balance between the two based off your knowledge. Okay, so here's my tip. This is the reason you need to watch my first chapter video. If you have not yet, go do that now. Outline your first chapter, know what's going to happen into it, and work backwards from it. That's my tip, basically. Work backwards in your first chapter. As I mentioned in my first chapter video, you need to have an incentive something that happens in the first chapter that begins it all. I'm going to use a Harry Potter example. In the first chapter, Harry's dropped off at the doorstep of his Muggle family, the Dursleys. And it is mentioned that he is going to be famous and that he has a scar on his head. This is the incentive event in the first chapter. However, all of that incentive event does not happen on the first page. And the first page is what, 200 words? So what happens around the first page? Well, they notice that there are owls everywhere. And then there's a cat. And that Dursley doesn't really pay much attention to it, but the writer pays attention to it. This kind of shows that there's something odd going on, and that there is an incentive coming up in this chapter, or at least somewhere in this book. You need to show what leads up to that incentive, because an incentive hardly ever just bomb drops. So you need to show what happened. So they dropped off the doorstep after there was abnormal behavior around the world, and that was featured around the first page. Another tip I'm basically going to have is something you need to ask yourself, and this is how you're going to figure out whether your first line or your first page or even your first chapter is good. What questions are you having the reader ask? That is how you get people to keep reading. Okay. I mention it in first chapter. I mention it in cliffhangers. You need to get your reader to ask questions. That is what gets people going. What the heck is going on? Why is this happening? That's how you get them to just focus one page at a time. Get them to ask questions. And you do this by having abnormal things going on. Okay, when there's a whole bunch of owls at once, most of the time you're going to raise an eyebrow and say, what the heck's going on? Why is suddenly the cat important? In high school, I read a book called 1984, and the first line is literally striking the clock 13. So it talks about the clock striking 13. Well, that doesn't happen in everyday life. Why the heck is it striking 13? Their first question off of the first line. Now they're going to read that paragraph, and if you can get them to have even more questions, they're going to finish the first page. And if they finish the first page, if they get to the bottom of your first page, they are most likely going to turn that page. That's what I have. Ta-da! Go watch the rest of my stuff, because I do improve your writing. I have gotten lots of people tell me that it's great. And I want you to think so too. So go ahead, like and subscribe. Beating a dead horse here. Like and subscribe. And go watch the rest of my videos, because I do help you market correctly. I help you publish, and I help you write. You see, I did that backwards, so that way you would be able to listen more. So yeah, you need to go do that. That's it.